friends, you're in the military summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And during the previous 12 hours, most of the sources were talking just about one thing. Everybody was discussing the 28-point Trump plan. Trump plan asks Ukraine to cede additional territories for security guarantees. The United States is ready to recognize Crimea and Donbas as Russian territory. Trump's plan demands maximum concessions from Ukraine. You know that this is a very important detail because I would like to remind you and to point your attention that according to the previous versions of this, let's say, of peace plan, the United States of America was ready to recognize just Crimea as a part of the Russian Federation, but now, as we can see, the United States of America were forced to make some concessions in the Russian favor. The publication reveals details of the 28-point Trump plan for ending the war. The document stipulates that the United States and several countries will officially recognize Crimea and Donbas as Russian territory, but does not require such recognition from Ukraine. Essentially, Kiev is being asked to agree to territorial concessions and new political terms that would fix the current balance of power and significantly limit room for maneuver. The points of the agreement proposed by the American side: setting the entire eastern part of Donbas, including areas currently controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces, recognition of Crimea and Donbas as Russian territory by the United States and several countries, creation of a demilitarized zone along the withdrawal line, restrictions on the size of the Ukrainian army and its long-range weapons, partial withdrawal of Russian forces in the Kherson and Zaporozhye regions, fixing the current lines of control as the basis for future map, participation of Qatar and Turkey as mediators, recognition of Russian as the official state language of Ukraine, basic security guarantees for Kiev and Europe from the United States of America. Furthermore, during the previous night, different sources, independent sources, clarified the situation with this 28-point plan. For example, this is a very important clarification that I would like to discuss with you. A 2.5-fold reduction in the Ukrainian armed forces and no foreign troops in Ukraine. New details of the US peace plan. According to the Economist journalist Oliver Carroll, the plan includes the following points: a 2.5-fold reduction in the Ukrainian army, not half as much as expected. The journalist writes: no foreign troops in Ukraine, no foreign diplomatic aircraft in Ukraine, a ban on long-range weapons that could reach St. Petersburg and Moscow. Carroll adds that Ukraine is currently critically weakened by a domestic corruption scandal, which the United States is exploiting in an attempt to force Kiev to agree to this plan. So when talking about a 2.5-fold reduction, most likely we're talking that the Ukraine will be allowed to have 400,000 armies. So this is a maximum army that Ukraine will be able to have if they will accept this proposal. Furthermore, another important thing is that despite the fact that some sources reported that Zelensky rejected this plan, basically rejected, Zelensky still hasn't seen this plan. According to information we have, yesterday Zelensky was in Turkey. He had a meeting with the president of Turkey, Erdogan. He was planning to have a meeting with Witkoff, but in the last moment, Witkoff cancelled his meeting with Zelensky due to corruption scandals. So Zelensky will return back today, or maybe he has already returned back to Ukraine, and today he will get this plan. The terms of the peace agreement negotiated by the United States and Russia will be presented to Zelensky tomorrow. So this was stated yesterday, so it means that he will see this plan today. The full plan, every single paragraph, every single point from this 28-point plan. The plan will be presented during a meeting with US military officials in Kiev, US Army Secretary Dan Driscoll and Chief of Staff General Randy George. After the meeting with Zelensky, the officials will travel to Moscow. So most likely Zelensky today will be forced to make his decision, his most important and decisive decision, whether to accept the plan or not. But something tells me that he will not accept the plan, because starting this morning, lots of sources stated that Ukraine rejects the US-Russia peace plan. Ukrainian officials said it fully complies with the Kremlin's maximalist demands, and that without significant changes, it will not be implemented in Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. But there is another important piece of news from Ukraine, from Kiev. The Rada, the parliament of Ukraine, has suspended its works indefinitely due to a corruption scandal. Parliament Speaker Stefanchuk announced arrests and consultations due to the NABU investigation and the resignation of 2 ministers. I am now announcing arrests in our plenary session. So the Ukraine parliament has stopped working. This is a very interesting piece of news, because right after this update, Ukrainian deputy Anna Skorokhod predicted further events in Ukraine. She said that next we will have a new temporary government that will prepare the country for elections, negotiate and sign a peace agreement. So it seems that from one side, Zelensky most likely is going to reject this peace plan, but it seems that currently everything works without him. So it seems that starting of today, nobody is going to count his opinion, nobody is going to listen to him. The Verkhovna Rada stopped working, and now we see that most likely the Ukraine parliament is being prepared to create new coalitions, new parliament, and new government that will do everything necessary with the purpose to settle the conflict with the Russian Federation. But you know that, of course, we can talk a lot about these political statements, about these political things, but we always must remember that there are still lots of soldiers from the Ukrainian side along the line of combat contact who will never accept any agreements with the Russian Federation and who will fight with Russia until the borders of 1991. So which means that Zelensky is not the only, let's say, problem for the United States of America. They still have to find a solution how to handle with these forces along the line of combat contact. And there are lots of soldiers who still believes that Ukraine can win and that Ukraine can continue fighting with the Russian Federation. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. Today is a very difficult day for Zelensky. He must make this decision, and we'll see what kind of decision he is going to make today. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates exactly from this area. As you can see, the map has been changed once again. So this is the situation by the end of the 19th of November of 2025, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 20th of November. According to information we have, the armed forces of the Russian Federation improved their positions to the north of the settlement of Gulay-Polye, and the Russians managed to improve their positions to the northeast of the settlement as well. Some sources stated that Russians entered the settlement of Zatyshe and that there are very heavy clashes right now. Furthermore, 5 minutes before I started making this video, several pro-Russian sources stated that Ukrainians were forced to fall back completely from the settlement of Zatyshe and that the Russians captured this territory. Furthermore, also 5 minutes before I started making this video, very reliable pro-Russian sources stated that the village of Veselye was also captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So the Zaporozhye front line collapses, and most likely in coming days or weeks we're gonna start watching the battle for the city of Gulay-Polye, very heavy battle between Russians and the Ukrainians, if Zelensky doesn't accept the peace proposal today. And if he rejects, we need to understand that the next peace proposal would be much worse in comparison with the current one. Now let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians improved their positions once again. So this is the situation by the end of the 19th of November of 2025, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 20th of November. The armed forces of the Russian Federation improved their positions along M30 and L525 road in the direction of the settlement of Grishina. Furthermore, the Russians secured several positions on the most northern part of the settlement. So currently we can say that maybe even in coming hours the Ukrainians will lose their last square kilometers of the city of Pokrovsk, and the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will announce that the city was completely captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. As of the 20th of November of 2025, there are still lots of Ukrainians, lots of pockets of resistance across the city that the Russians are trying to secure and to clear. Ukrainians most likely have no chances for successful evacuation from this area. Furthermore, according to neutral mappers, the armed forces of the Russian Federation during the previous 12 hours improved their positions in the southern part of the city of Mirnograd, and Russians improved their positions in the northeastern part of the city. Basically, the Russians are about to finish the battle for the northern Mirnograd citadel. So the news is tightening around Ukrainian positions, making it almost completely impossible for successful resolving of this situation. Now let's talk about the Sivers direction. During the previous 12 hours, we haven't received almost anything from the city of Siversk. Several Western analytics stated that the situation in this area is critical, that the Russians managed to break through the fence that Ukrainians have been holding since the beginning of 2022. Now up to 25% of the city of Siversk is under control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, and the Russians continue advancing further in the northern and the northwestern directions. At the same time, lots of interesting updates we received from the area and from the line between the cities of Lyman and Yampol. So this is the map by the end of the 19th of November, and this is the map by the beginning of the 20th of November. As you can see, the Russians managed to recapture the most northern part of the settlement of Yampol. So once again, up to 35 or 40% of the settlement is under complete Russian control. Furthermore, the Russians managed to capture a stronghold along the 0513 road. This stronghold is currently under control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, and the most important is that first sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were discovered and spotted on the territory of the city of Yampol, of Lyman itself. So this video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation on the territory of the settlement. So in this very episode, we can see a Russian soldier that left this building right before Ukrainians attacked this building with FPV drones. So just on this scene, we can see two Russian soldiers that were trying to change their positions under heavy fire from Ukrainian drones. This episode took place exactly in this area. So based on this video, we came to conclusion that Russians entered the city of Lyman and that there are very heavy clashes for its southeastern and the eastern parts. So which means that the Russians began advancing further in the direction of the city of Slaviansk. So a very interesting day is ahead of us, and today Ukrainian sources, Zelensky will make his final and very important decision whether to accept the terms of Russia or to reject them. And for example, the head of Ukrainian intelligence service, Budanov, stated that winter will be tough, but only Trump can stop the fighting in Ukraine. The winter will be very hard, very difficult, but Ukraine will survive this period, says the head of the main intelligence directorate. In his opinion, only Trump can stop the fighting in Ukraine. He believes that peace talks could resume in early to mid-February. So according to the intelligence service, Zelensky will reject this proposal, these demands or this ultimatum today, and war and the special military operation will continue for December, for January, and maybe only in February the parties will resume negotiation process. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.